Hello again, everyone, and Happy New Year. This is Chicago Lawyer Magazine's Inside Out, the segment where we look at different aspects of the law with our unique husband and wife team of David Susler. He has the inside perspective. David is an inside counsel at National Material LP. The outside perspective comes from Tina Martini, a partner at DLA Piper. I'm Andy Shaw, President and CEO of the Better Government Association, and I'm doing this not because they're doing legal work for me in exchange, as I said in an earlier segment, because these are my friends, and I also have a cherished older daughter who's a lawyer, and so instead of telling lawyer jokes, I'm now doing nice things for lawyers because I've grown very fond of them. This, as you may have gathered, is another more informal segment. It doesn't match up with anything that's in the magazine. This is like a bonus taping for those of you who'd like to have a little more of Tina and David, even though you also have a little more of Andy at the same time. It's all part of a package, and you can't have two without the third. So with this bonus segment, we have a couple of questions, a little more professionally oriented than touchy-feely, which we did the last time, but not so much on any specific aspect of the law. Let's call this the greatest hits segment. And David, starting with you, cite, if you would, a few things that you're most proud of during your years as a lawyer.
That I'm most proud of?
Or things you consider significant that you've either done or been a part of as you've pursued your legal career.
You know, that's a question, the what am I most proud of? It's a question I actually like to answer that question, because what I always go back to is when I was a plaintiff's lawyer, we had a case that the woman who had been rear-ended, and she's had soft tissue neck injury, but there was a question whether or not it had triggered a far more serious degenerative nerve condition. It ended up that that wasn't the case. So it was just a very small soft tissue injury case, but we couldn't get the defendants to offer any money until the day of the trial. And this was dragging on for a number of years. Back then, it took a long time. And our client was getting sicker and sicker, and she just wanted the case to be over, and I couldn't get it to be over. So finally, the day of the trial, walked into court, I sat her in a room, the defense attorney came in, and we talked, and I finally got him to offer, all we wanted was $3,000. That's all we wanted. So I finally got it, and I remember I walked into the room where my client was sitting, and I walked in, and I held up my fingers. I told the story 100 times over the years, and I kind of get the chills every time I tell it, because I did this, and she just smiled and started to cry, because she knew this part of her life was finally over, and she could just put this behind her and concentrate on what was important in her life.
You know, I was a news reporter in my previous life, so I have a cynical view of a lot of things, and I like follow-up questions. So let me ask you if you ever thought that perhaps the thing dragged so long so that your opponent on the other side could rack up an enormous amount of fee work before they finally settled for a pittance.
I have my ideas of why it dragged on so long.
You're not allowed to say something like that?
You know, that part was ancient history, but that, you know, that's not what I'm proud of. I'm proud of what I was able to do for my client and let her get on with her life.
Well, that's nice. I mean, because these are the stories that lawyers should be telling. These are the winners in these cases. How about you, Tina? You've had a pretty illustrious skyrocketing career at DLA, being named to the management committee and other things. So what do you think are the most significant benchmarks?
Well, it's been almost 20 years, so it's a little bit hard to sort of condense to condense that all into just a few seconds. But just looking back on a couple things, I would say being as welcomed as I was as a new associate at the time that I started practicing here in 1994, it was a really tough economy, and finding a home in the intellectual property group and finding a home at the firm, it was really a privilege. And I think that had I not had the opportunity to work at a firm like this, my career would look very different than it does now. And finding a place and being, I guess, part of something much bigger than me, when you look at the evolution of this firm and how far it's come and what it has become in the last 20 years, that's really been a privilege to be now at, the biggest law firm in the world. At the time I started it here, it was just a large law firm, a very regional firm. I would also say when I became partner and became a member of the executive committee. Those are two really significant things. I think in terms of clients and my ability to serve my clients particularly well, I would say when I was on loan to two clients as an associate, they were two different clients at two very different junctures of my associate career here. I would say that those were two really big inflection points in my career, because it gave me an insight into what clients go through and how clients think, being on site at a client for a total of two clients for a total of a year. I think that those two experiences, maybe more so than any other experience that I've had as a lawyer, really made me a much better lawyer and much better at understanding where my clients are coming from and what value I can contribute to a particular matter.
You know, some questions are always hard to answer. You want a simple answer, maybe there isn't one. But David, is there one piece of advice you were given at some point along the way that you remember as being somehow pivotal or seminal or ultra significant?
Yeah,
study hard. Eat your broccoli.
I always liked broccoli.
Okay.
You know, one piece of advice that always stands out, and this is something I share a lot with law students and young lawyers that I mentor. When I was probably around 10 years old, I was driving with my father to his law firm, and I remember him asking me, "So David, who do you think is the most important person in the law firm?" And I said, "Well, the partners, of course." And he said, "No, the support staff, because you can't get anything done without them. And they're people too. You have to treat them well." And that's a great life lesson, that we are all equal, and we all have our part to play, and we need everybody in order to accomplish our goals.
Well, maybe you already answered the follow-up question with that answer, which is, what piece of advice do you give others that you think is worth you sharing and them heeding?
Well, that's one of the primary things I do like to share. Another piece of advice that my father gave me when I didn't get an offer after my 2L summer internship, and of course I was devastated and trying to figure out why. And I learned a couple years ago exactly why, and it had nothing to do with me. But I was gratified to know that.
Are you going to share that or no?
No, I can't share that publicly.
Okay.
But anyway, but I was trying to figure out what it was. I was kind of a brash young man and said, "Well, Dad, I don't understand. I met them halfway. I cut my hair, I put on a suit and tie, but
Took your earring out?
Took my earring out. But when I walked into the office, I took my suit coat off and I loosened my tie and rolled up my sleeves. So I met him halfway. I don't understand." And he said, "Well, let me tell you, David, a little bit of brown nosing never hurt anybody. Too much will kill you." Now, I had no clue what that meant, and it took me several years to figure it out. But in essence, that is the essence of office politics. And there's office politics to play everywhere. And it's a matter of learning how to get along, to go along. And there's nothing wrong with paying respect and doing a little bit of paying a little fealty to people. But you also have to know where the boundary is, both legally and ethically, as well as who you are as a person. You can't bend over so far backwards you lose who you are.
I think that's good advice in any profession.
Yeah.
Can you think of any piece of advice someone gave you that you still remember as being really important?
Yes, I would say that I've had a number of folks tell me this, especially when I was younger, how important it is to go with your gut. And not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, and disregard what your head is telling you. And it's interesting because I have the science background and the engineering background. I also have the law background. So it's so easy to just sort of get lost on the left side of my brain and, be very fact-based in my analysis of everything. But I guess as I've gotten older and just have had more experience in life, as well as and as well as professionally, I've realized how important it is, and that going with your gut is really very important. And it's something I didn't really understand when I was younger, but I think especially when you're talking about things where there is no right answer, you have to rely on your experience. And I think there's certain aspects to your gut that are driven by the life experience you have. Sometimes it's just your intuition sort of telling you what the right answer and what the wrong answer is, especially in those sort of blurry areas like people management, leadership decisions, that sort of thing. So, I mean, that was terrific advice, and I find that that is really something that I heed much more so now than when I was younger.
So maybe you don't have a separate one that you share with others, but you're a mentor, you're a role model, you belong to groups and try to help people, actualize themselves. Is that the advice you give them, or is there something else you share that you think is maybe more important or as important?
Well, like David, there are a couple things that I share with people. One of them is what I just mentioned about following your intuition, but I would also say it's really important to follow your passion. Especially in this era of the legal profession and other professions where there's just the seismic shifts that have happened as a result of the latest downturn in the economy and how a lot of professions have been changed forever. I think it's really important to follow your passion and to obviously be strategic and intelligent about it. But people can tell when you're not authentic. And if people come into this profession, just by way of example, without loving it, without really feeling passionate about it, without a fire in the belly for it, it's pretty obvious. And that really is the type of thing that differentiates one attorney from another, not only when you're in school and trying to get a job with a law firm or some other venue, but also when you're trying to get clients. If you act like you're faking it, or even if you're a good faker, people can pretty much tell when you're not authentic. And the authenticity, I think, is directly linked to following your true passion and really being as a person and as a human being in alignment with what you say. And I think it's all interconnected. And so I tell people to follow their passion. So especially when I'm meeting with younger adults who I'm mentoring, who may be trying to figure out whether they should go to law school or do something else. Like, if you don't love this, if you don't pine for this and have a hunger for this, then you probably shouldn't be doing it.
I think that's good advice. I feel the same way. This isn't on the question list that you gave me, but I'm going to come up with one last one before we let people go about the rest of their busy lives. And that is, it's 2014, it's January. So what's your New Year's resolution?
I don't make New Year's resolutions so that I don't have to answer that question.
Well, that's okay.
But
I guess maybe the alternate way of putting it is, what would you like to see happen in 2014, either to you, or the two of you, or the world, or the legal profession? I mean, what would be a good aspiration for 2014, even if it isn't a resolution?
I'd really like to finally start exercising again.
Thank goodness it wasn't world peace, because I got to tell you, that ain't going to happen.
Well, I'm always working for it.
Well, you don't look like you need too much exercise, so you have a shorter path on that one. Okay, more exercise. And Ms. Martini, a resolution or an aspiration for 14?
I really love what I do, so I just would love for 2014 to continue to be the way it's been in terms of the firm doing well, client development, and also just really being able to have a little bit more time to pursue some of my hobbies. As you know, I love to write, and so I would love to maybe continue to do that. I've got a book that I sort of started and have tabled, so maybe I'd like to
just read 2 pages a night.
Well, actually, I'm talking about writing a book.
I know.
But so it'll be interesting. I'm hoping to actually dust that off and maybe start writing again. So.
Darn, I thought you were going to say attend more BGA board meetings. Tina's a member of the BGA board, and she's so busy with the rest of her life, we don't see enough of her. My resolution for 2014 is to see more of you and you in whatever venue works to everybody's mutual advantage. Anyway, Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year,
This
too.
is fun. I think my contract has been renewed for 2014.
Yes, it sure has.
I have to wait to find out. David Susler, Tina Martini, this has been your inaugural 2014 segment of Inside Out for Chicago Lawyer Magazine. I'm Andy Shaw. See you later in the year, but thanks for joining us and have a great day.